There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean the absence of sound. It's the absence of noise within you. It's the moment when your thoughts stop chasing one another, when the inner voice of doubt and fear softens and you become aware of something much deeper than the surface of your mind. Most people believe that silence is passive, that it's doing nothing. But in truth, silence is the highest form of activity. It's the space where creation happens, where alignment begins, and where everything that's meant for you starts moving in your direction without force. In the world we live in today, noise has become our default state. Notifications, endless scrolling, the pressure to always be doing something, to be somewhere, to prove something. We've mistaken movement for progress, busyness for success, and talking for knowing. But deep down, you feel that all this noise is draining something essential from you, your peace, your clarity, your connection with life itself. The more you chase after things, the more they seem to slip away. The harder you try to control outcomes, the more resistance you create. This is because true creation doesn't come from control. It comes from stillness. It comes from silence. When you enter a state of inner stillness, you shift from being a reactor to being a creator. You stop responding to external chaos and begin operating from internal coherence. Science shows us that when your brain waves slow down, from beta into alpha and theta, you enter a space where the mind and body begin to communicate harmoniously. Your nervous system relaxes, your heart rhythm becomes coherent, and your body starts to heal and restore itself naturally. In this state, inspiration comes effortlessly. Ideas flow with clarity, and intuition guides your actions with precision. That is the real power of silence. It aligns you with a deeper intelligence that knows far more than your conscious mind ever could. Imagine sitting in stillness, not because you're trying to meditate perfectly or achieve something mystical, but simply because you're allowing yourself to exist without interference. At first, your mind will resist. It will throw thoughts at you, memories, plans, judgments, distractions. That's what the mind does. But if you sit long enough, if you breathe deeply and keep observing without reacting, something remarkable begins to happen. The noise begins to fade. The tension in your chest begins to soften. You start to feel space within you. And in that space, you begin to sense a subtle energy calm, gentle and powerful at the same time. That's your natural state. That's the stillness that has been waiting beneath all the noise. This stillness isn't about withdrawing from life or becoming detached from the world. It's about connecting more deeply to it without distortion. When you're silent inside, you don't react impulsively to situations. You respond with wisdom. You stop taking everything personally because you realize that most chaos outside is just an echo of unhealed noise within people. You begin to see life from a higher perspective, as if you've stepped out of the storm and are now observing the clouds move without getting caught in them. In that silence, you start to hear something new, the voice of intuition, the whisper of your higher self. It's subtle, but it's precise. It tells you when to move, when to wait, what to release, and what to embrace. It doesn't argue. It doesn't shout. It just knows. And when you learn to trust that knowing, you discover that everything begins to flow naturally. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer fight, you allow. You no longer question every step. You move with quiet confidence because you know that stillness is guiding you. Many people misunderstand silence as stagnation, as if being quiet means you're doing nothing. But silence is not nothing, it's everything. It's the space where your intentions begin to take root. Just as the seed must rest in darkness before it breaks through the soil, you too must rest in silence before your reality can transform. Every manifestation, every dream, every inspired action begins in the invisible realm of stillness. The energy you emit in silence carries information, and that energy begins to attract circumstances and experiences that match its frequency. That's why those who cultivate inner stillness often find that life unfolds in their favor with almost no effort. The mind constantly wants to speak, to analyze, to explain. It wants certainty, control, and validation. But silence teaches you to surrender. It teaches you that certainty doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from inner alignment. Control doesn't create flow, trust does. Validation doesn't bring peace, self-connection does. When you practice silence, even for a few moments a day, you begin to notice how much noise you've been carrying unnecessarily. You begin to see how much energy you've wasted trying to fix things externally that were always meant to be adjusted internally. The truth is, silence is not empty. It's full of answers. It's where creativity is born, where your body rejuvenates, where your energy resets. It's the frequency where you meet the present moment fully. And in the present moment, there is no anxiety about the future, no regret about the past. There is only peace. And that peace, that quiet awareness, becomes the foundation from which everything natural begins to unfold. When you learn to embrace the power of inner stillness, you stop fighting against life and start flowing with it. You stop looking for signs and start becoming one. You stop waiting for miracles and realize that your silence itself is the miracle. Everything that you've been searching for externally begins to rise within you effortlessly, not because you forced it, but because you finally became still enough to receive it. The mind is an extraordinary instrument, yet for most people, it has become the master rather than the servant. It runs on autopilot, generating thoughts based on old memories, fears, and repetitive emotional patterns. Every thought triggers a chemical response in the body, and that chemical response becomes a feeling. That feeling then reinforces the same thoughts again, creating a closed loop that defines how you perceive reality. This is how most people live, recycling the past every single day. But when you introduce silence into that loop, you begin to interrupt the pattern. You begin to rewire your mind through awareness rather than reaction. Quiet awareness is not about escaping your thoughts. It's about observing them with such presence that they lose their power over you. The moment you become aware of a thought without judging it, you separate yourself from it. You begin to see that you are not the voice in your head, you are the awareness behind it. This is the first stage of rewiring the mind, realizing that you are the observer, not the noise. When this happens, your brain begins to change physically. Neural networks that were once deeply wired by repetition start to loosen. The circuits that kept firing in response to stress, fear, and overthinking begin to weaken because you're no longer feeding them with emotional energy. Silence is the reset button for your neural architecture. It allows your brain to move from survival mode to creation mode. In survival, your attention is scattered. Your mind is constantly scanning for threats, focusing on problems, and anticipating the worst-case scenarios. This releases stress hormones that keep your body in a state of alertness. Over time, this chronic state of alertness becomes fatigue, anxiety, and disconnection. But when you become quiet, when you breathe and bring awareness back to the present, your body starts to relax. Your brain shifts from high-frequency beta waves into the slower, more coherent alpha and theta states. In those slower brainwave states, new neural pathways can form, pathways that reflect calmness, clarity, and creativity. Quiet awareness doesn't happen by force. It happens through gentle observation. The more you practice it, the more sensitive you become to your own mental activity. You start to notice how often your mind jumps from one worry to another. You catch yourself replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes, trying to control things beyond your reach. But instead of feeding those thoughts, you simply observe them as clouds passing through the sky. And the more you observe, the faster they dissolve. This is the rewiring process in real time. Awareness dissolves unconsciousness. Every time you observe instead of react, you're teaching your brain a new pattern, one of peace instead of panic, flow instead of force. There's profound intelligence in the silence that awareness creates. It's as if the brain finally has room to breathe. When you stop overanalyzing, your subconscious mind begins to do its real work. It starts integrating experiences, releasing stored emotions, and reorganizing your internal world. That's why moments of silence often bring sudden clarity or inspiration. What you think of as intuition is actually coherence, the moment when your heart and brain are synchronized. Science has shown that when your heart rhythm is smooth and your brain waves are aligned, information flows more efficiently between the two. You think more clearly, feel more balanced, and make decisions from alignment rather than fear. In this quiet awareness, you also start to notice how emotions live within the body. Every suppressed feeling leaves a residue somewhere: tension in the shoulders, heaviness in the chest, tightness in the stomach. When you sit in silence, those sensations come to the surface, not to torment you, but to be released. The body finally gets permission to speak. You might feel waves of emotion rise and fall, but instead of resisting them, you breathe and watch them dissolve. This is not weakness. This is healing. Silence trains your mind to move from chaos to coherence. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for awareness, focus, and emotional regulation. Over time, this practice changes your default state. Instead of waking up in stress or fear, you begin your day in a state of centeredness. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause and respond consciously. You start creating new emotional set points, gratitude instead of frustration, trust instead of doubt, calm instead of urgency. These emotional states send new signals to your body, changing its chemistry and creating harmony where there once was imbalance. When you understand this process, you realize that silence is not inactivity. It's neuroplasticity in motion. It's your brain rewiring itself to match the vibration of peace, the frequency of clarity. The more you enter that silent state, the more your external world begins to reflect your internal order. You find that you attract situations that mirror your calmness, conversations that flow easily, solutions that appear when you stop forcing them. You begin to live from a state of coherence rather than conflict. Quiet awareness is also the key to dissolving the illusion of time. When you're caught in thought, you're either in the past or the future, dreading or anticipating. But when you become aware, truly aware, you step out of time and into presence. In presence, there is no separation between you and life itself. You become one with the flow of existence, and in that unity, everything you need begins to come naturally. You don't have to push or chase. You simply align. The more you practice this inner silence, the more natural it becomes. Thoughts will still arise, but you'll no longer be enslaved by them. You'll begin to sense the space between thoughts, that infinite stillness that's always been there, but often unnoticed. In that space, you realize that awareness itself is your true nature. It was never about silencing the mind by force. It was about seeing through it until all that remained was possessed. The greatest illusion the human mind clings to is control. From the moment we wake up, we plan, predict, and prepare, convinced that if we just manage everything perfectly, life will unfold the way we want it to. We tighten our grip on outcomes, relationships, goals, and even our identity, afraid that if we let go, everything will fall apart. But in truth, it's the constant need for control that keeps us trapped in struggle. Control is the language of fear. Trust is the language of creation. The more you try to control, the more resistance you create. And the more resistance you create, the farther you move from flow. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about aligning. It's with a higher order that already knows how to guide your life with precision beyond your understanding. Every time you force an outcome, you're acting from a limited perspective. You're trying to shape reality based on the past and what you think you know, on what you fear might happen, or on what you've been conditioned to believe you need to feel safe. But life doesn't operate from the past. Life is fluid, dynamic, intelligent. When you try to control it, you interfere with that intelligence. You become like a river trying to dictate its own flow instead of surrendering to the current that already knows where it's going. When you begin to trust the process, you allow that current to carry you toward experiences, opportunities, and outcomes that are far greater than what your limited mind could imagine. Trusting the process begins with recognizing that you're not separate from life, you are life. The same intelligence that causes your heart to beat and your lungs to expand also orchestrates galaxies, tides, and seasons. It's the same intelligence that moves through everything that exists. When you resist, you create friction. When you surrender, you merge with that intelligence. This merging isn't passive. It's deeply participatory. It means showing up fully, doing your part, setting your intentions, and then allowing life to do the rest. It means replacing the need to control outcomes with the decision to trust timing. Control is often rooted in fear, fear of uncertainty, fear of loss, fear of failure. But the truth is, uncertainty is where growth happens. When everything is known and predictable, there's no room for expansion. Life pushes you into the unknown, not to punish you, but to awaken you. When you let go, you step into that unknown space with faith, not because you know what will happen, but because you trust that something higher is guiding the process. This act of trust sends a signal to your subconscious mind that says, I am safe, even here. That signal alone changes your energy, relaxes your body, and opens the door for new possibilities to enter. The irony is that when you stop trying to control everything, you actually gain real power. It's not the power of domination, it's the power of alignment. Think of how the ocean moves with ease. The waves don't force themselves into being. They rise and fall according to the rhythm of the tide. When you align yourself with that rhythm, when you trust that things are unfolding exactly as they should, your life begins to mirror that same natural flow. You start noticing synchronicities, those small moments that seem too perfectly timed to be random. You meet the right person, find the right opportunity, receive an idea at the perfect moment. None of that happens through control, it happens through surrender. Letting go of control also means releasing attachment to outcomes. Attachment is the root of suffering because it creates conditions on your happiness. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when this happens, or I'll feel at peace once I get this. But that mindset keeps your peace in the future, always just out of reach. When you let go, you detach from the when and how, and instead focus on the what and why. You hold your vision, but release your demand for timing. You allow the universe to fill in the details in ways you couldn't predict. This creates a vibrational shift state of allowing rather than resisting. And in that state, manifestation becomes effortless. Trusting the process doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means your actions come from inspiration rather than desperation. When you're connected to flow, you intuitively know what to do next. You feel guided. You might not have the whole plan, but the next step reveals itself, and then the next. Life becomes a co-creation rather than a battle. You no longer waste energy worrying about what's beyond your control because you understand that what's meant for you cannot be taken, and what's not meant for you will never stay. This awareness brings peace to your mind and lightness to your heart. There's a profound freedom in surrender. When you let go of the illusion of control, you begin to experience reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. You stop trying to bend life to your will and start bending yourself to the rhythm of life. You begin to trust that even challenges carry wisdom, that delays aren't denials, but divine redirections. That loss often clears space for greater abundance. Trust transforms chaos into clarity. It transforms impatience into peace. It transforms fear into faith. To truly let go, you must first accept that control was never real. You can influence your energy, your thoughts, your actions, but you cannot dictate the flow of the universe. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to. The moment you release the need to know how things will work out, you create space for them to work out better than you imagined. You stop fighting against the current and start floating with it. You realize that life isn't asking you to figure everything out. It's asking you to trust that everything is already figured out. When you reach that level of surrender, the mind softens, the heart opens, and the body relaxes. You move through life with grace because you know that every experience is unfolding for your highest growth. You no longer see obstacles as setbacks, but as invitations to deepen your faith. You realize that the real work was never about controlling the external world. It was about mastering the internal one. There's a profound truth hidden in the quiet moments of life. What you are seeking is also seeking you. But it cannot find you if you are vibrating at a frequency of resistance, fear, or impatience. Everything in this universe operates through vibration. Every thought, every emotion, every word carries a frequency that sends out a signal. And that signal draws experiences, people, and circumstances that match it. Most people are unaware of the signals they are sending because their energy is consumed by anxiety, doubt, or constant striving. They think manifestation is about effort, when in reality, it's about alignment. When you are silent and still within, when your energy is balanced and your intention is clear, You become a magnet for everything that resonates with that state of being every time you return to silence. You're realigning with your natural frequency, the one before the world taught you to doubt, rush, or fear. In that frequency, everything begins to come naturally because you are no longer in conflict with life. You are in harmony with it. You have become the vibration of what you desire, and the universe, being a perfect mirror, has no choice but to reflect that energy back to you in forms, people, and moments that feel like destiny.